Hi everybody, very welcome to Mentour and yet another video podcast. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic. Today on the video, guys, what's happening with the 737 MAX and what's up with Boeing? What's up with these faulty parts that was reportedly fitted onto the NG and to the MAX fleet? Stay tuned.
Wind 31016, everyone right, right on it.
Third land, 31 right. Delta 260, see if they're due.
Well guys, as you see, I'm not in uniform today, and that's because I am officially on vacation. But I wanted to address this because there's been a lot of questions about it, okay? You can expect me to come back with a full roster of once a week videos from September onwards, but up until then, it's likely that I will only release maybe 1 or 2 videos per month in order to update you guys on what's going on. So, the 737 MAX situation, as I'm sure that you all know if you've been following this channel and many other media outlets, the 737 MAX is still grounded. And it's grounded because of 2 horrible crashes that happened, one back in October 2018 to a Lion Air flight and one in March 2019 to an Ethiopian flight. It was indicated by, the initial reports in both cases, even though we're still waiting for the final report, that the MCAS system, which I've talked about previously, you can check out those videos, was part of the reason why the aircraft went down. And at the moment, everyone is still waiting for Boeing to provide the necessary software fix and potential training program for pilots in order for the FAA to allow the aircraft to get up into the air. So what are we waiting for then? At the moment, it looks like the FAA has been given at least the initial software fix. It is likely to contain things like limiting the authority of the MCAS system. So instead of how it was previously, where the MCAS trim system was able to trim to a much greater authority, as in making it much more nose heavy than it was expected, and also initially it could reset itself. So it did a pitch down, and if the pilots reset by trimmed themselves again, the system would re-engage and trim down more and more and more. So this has likely been stopped in the coming software package. But also it is expected that the MCAS system will now be relying on 2 alpha vane sensors instead of 1, which means that if one sensor would become faulty for whatever reason, then the system would notice that there's a discrepancy between the 2 alpha vanes and it would not activate MCAS. So those 2 things, together with some indications in the flight deck and probably more details in it, has been deemed by the FAA, as far as we know, to be sufficient. Also, Boeing has come with a theoretical instruction package for the pilots so that we will be able to read more about the system to understand it better and what to do in case something happens. And the pilot unions in America has so far indicated that this would be sufficient. Now, it should be noted that there are pilot unions out there in other parts of the world that are still asking for an actual simulator course to be done in order to feel how this system actually works. And exactly how this is going to be implemented, it's hard to say. It might well be that the authorities won't mandate, as in won't tell the airlines that they need to do this, but the airlines are free to do that themselves. We don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but we'll likely know in a few months. So what's stopping it from getting back airborne? Well, this has been and is continuously a PR disaster for Boeing. They have to play this very, very carefully to make sure that the customers, you, the traveling public, and the pilot get full confidence with the aircraft when it's released back into the air. Previously, when something like this has happened, the authorities around the world have been looking to the main governing authority, in this case the FAA, to see what they think. And if the FAA has said, yeah, this is good enough, we like it, well then the other authorities have just followed suit. But given how reluctant the FAA was to ground the aircraft in the first place, and also the fact that they found out that the whole certification process might not have been done as good as it could have been done, the other authorities, like the Canadian authorities and the EASA, for example, have indicated that they want to do a thorough check of this aircraft themselves. So Right now, and I'm only speculating, it should be said, right now it is likely that Boeing is waiting with releasing the aircraft to the FAA and to them to potentially greenlight the aircraft until there is a consensus around the globe where all the authorities are happy with the information and the software package that Boeing has provided and the training program. And when everyone agrees that, now we're all satisfied, now we're all happy, then Boeing can release the aircraft into the air globally. Because only to be released, for example, in the States, but not be able to fly it in Canada or in Europe, or a delay in this process, is just going to create more confusion, more bad press, and it's going to lower the confidence in the aircraft. So it is likely to take time, this. We don't know exactly how long it will take. Initially, people were saying that it might be back in the air around August. Now the cancellations based on the MAX aircraft of the major American airlines are reaching into September, in some cases even December. So the fact is that no one knows at this point exactly when it's going to be released. But you can be absolutely sure that when it is, that just means that Boeing has managed to show that this is a perfectly safe aircraft to fly to all of the different authorities that will be asking very hard questions. Okay? So about this recent report that was out last week, that the FAA had found that Boeing had fitted faulty parts to their 737 NGs and some of the MAXes. Well, here, guys, I want you to view this from my perspective. Okay, when I read this, what I saw was actually a system working, right? A quality system working the way it should. Because what had happened was that Boeing, as part of their quality management system, had found out during inspections that some of their subcontractors had delivered parts that were subpar, that was not as good as they were supposed to. In this case, they were slat tracks. Slats are the high lift devices that extend in the front of the wing when we're extending flaps in order to make sure that we can get as much lift as possible during low speed flight, for example during takeoff and landing. So these slats, they move in tracks to make sure that they go out exactly in the same way on both wings with the same angles and so on every time we extend them. Now, some of these slat tracks were found during quality inspection to have not been properly heat treated. So if you don't heat treat a metal component, it means that it can become brittle and it can break quicker than what it is expected to be. Okay? So when we work with different parts in the airline industry, we work on something called safe life. That means that a part has a specific time that it can be used. So, for example, a number of cycles. It can be extended and retracted a number of times. And this is built with a huge margin. So it's shown that, for example, we can do 20,000 cycles with these tracks. And after 20,000 cycles, those tracks are removed or at least properly inspected. But if a component is shown to not have been manufactured correctly, well, then it cannot sustain, or it cannot be guaranteed that it can do this safe life cycles. And when that happens, this part has to be replaced. So what happened was that Boeing found this. They alerted the FAA, well knowing what kind of bad press would come out of this. The FAA went out to the operators, the airlines that have these aircraft. We're talking about 133 NGs potentially affected and 179 MAXes, and told them that you have 10 days to replace these parts or inspect them, depending on the severity. So what that shows is that if you're given 10 days to replace something, it means that this is not something that's going to cause an aircraft to fall out of the sky. If a slat track fails, it means that we, as we're flying, we might not get the slat out properly. We have checklists and procedures for that. It's perfectly possible to land the aircraft safely with a failure like that. But it's considered to be wise to remove these parts to avoid that from happening in the first place. That's number one. Number two is the system works. Boeing used a quality system, they alerted the FAA alerted the customers. You know, it's not a perfect world. you will always come across things that have been slightly faulty manufactured. You see this in the car industry all the time. You know, you buy some stuff that doesn't work properly. That happens sometimes. What is important is that there is a system in place that monitors this and makes sure that pieces are replaced before they become a problem. And this is what you see. When I saw that in the press last week, I thought, great, look, they're not pushing this under the rug to avoid bad press. They're going out, they're honest, they're telling people that this is happening, and they're replacing the parts to make sure that the aircraft continue to be safe. This is the way that the airline industry have to work. So that's what I see, and that's what I'm hoping that you will see as well when you see press like this. Because remember, at the moment, there's a huge interest in Boeing, okay? The newspapers, the press all around the world have noticed that there's a huge interest whenever they post something about Boeing. So this means that anything that is negative concerning Boeing at the moment is being pushed out in the press, and it gives you the sensation that Boeing has gone from being a really safe company to a really unsafe company. That is not the case, okay? This is, to a large extent, the 737 MAX is an isolated thing that you have to look at for that perspective, right? But the rest of the things that are coming out, things like this, is to be seen like a system that is actually working. So just bear that in mind when you see these kind of reports coming out. All right? Now, if you want to, during my vacation time, to want to talk to me, you want to ask some questions, or maybe just know a little bit more about how to become a pilot, or maybe you're a nervous flyer and you want to, you want to know what that strange sound was that you heard last time you were flying. Well, then get the Mentour Aviation app. You have the free download links down here. I'm in there every day answering questions. I have a lot of my colleagues are in there as well. There's people flying Airbus, there are people flying business jet, there are people training to become pilots. They're in there to answer your questions, and I've made huge updates to it. The latest update that I've just released today is that you can like people's comments. And as you gain more likes, if you are in there and you're active and you're answering a lot of questions, people will like your answers, well, then you will rise to become a silver user, a gold user, or even a platinum user. And that will show in the chat and in the forums so that people know that it's you they're supposed to be asking questions whenever you're in. I'm doing upgrades like this all the time. There's probably a new upgrade coming next week. So get the app, get in there, hang out with me, take part in the great society that we've built up in there. Have a fantastic day wherever you are, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.